And as I said earlier, this is the birth anniversary of the great country of Liberia. And to commemorate the anniversary of that country, we do have an historian. He was on the program previously. He wrote a book on Liberia. We'll be talking with Mr. Mongrue shortly here. And also we will be talking with the keynote speaker of the Independence Celebration event, which was held last night. The Honorable Finance Minister of the Republic of Liberia will also be in the house. We will be having a very friendly conversation with the minister. Also, our good old friend Tom Gitaa is here, and of course Tom is the publisher of Mshale. And today he's here to talk about his annual awards program. If you can remember, that started 5-6 years ago, I think, and it's still going strong. And Tom is here to give us a quick update on the awards. Keep your dial set on FM 89.9 KMOJ. We are the People's Station. FM 89.9 KMOJ, we are the People's Station. My name is Charles Dennis. I'm the host on the program, The African Roots Connection. And as I said earlier, we do have Tom Gitaa here. And Tom, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Charles.
And we're here to talk about the awards. This is the 5th or 6th annual?
This is the 4th edition.
Oh, the 4th. I'm kind of running with it. It seems so far.
Next year we celebrate the 5th one.
Okay.
Yes.
And so there's something unusual about this celebration this year.
Oh, unusual. You know what? Well, okay, yeah. I mean, actually, this year we, nominations are underway, by the way, first of all.
Uh-huh.
And thanks for having me too. So the nominations are on. They just started a week ago. They'll go through Monday, August 5th. So we definitely want people to go to the website, africanawards.org, and submit their nominations for the 7 categories that we're accepting nominations on. And, you know, we have different nominations. There's the Community Leadership Award. We have the African Business of the Year Award. We also have Student of the Year, Friend of the Community, which you won the first time, by the way, Charles.
Yeah.
Non-profit Organization of the Year, and we also have Artist of the Year, which was a very popular category the last time. We just launched it with the last awards. And then we have Spirit of the Moran Award. Moran is a Maasai warrior. So that is an award we give for people for acts of courage. You know, acts of courage. You know, maybe you rescue somebody from a fire, or you do something very courageous, or taking a stand that also can be harmful to yourself, but you're doing it for the better good of other people. Yes. Good.
So we have nominations starting, what date again? Let's make sure.
Yeah, they're actually underway already.
They're underway, so you can go to the website.
Yeah, africanawards.org.
And then pick a category. You are allowed to vote in each category, correct?
Yeah, actually, you can submit one nomination per category.
Okay.
So each person is allowed to nominate at least one person or organization per category. And then we'll give those to the judges. All the nominations will be submitted to the judges. Okay. And then what will happen is they'll pare down the list, bring it down to 3 per category. So they'll pick the ones that are the strongest in each category, and then they will put that to a vote on August 14. So on August 14 is when we'll actually do the voting via mobile text. This is something we introduced at the last edition of the African Awards, and proved very popular. So we're going to keep doing it. So when the judges give us the finalists for each category, which will be 3 each, then everybody will be able to vote the best candidate for each category via mobile text. It's proved very popular last time, so we're going to do that again this year.
And you know, Tom, as a former recipient, I think this brings something to our community. to know that we've been recognized by our own people.
Yes.
And I know that for me, it did a lot for me. I was so very appreciative, and then the fact that other people appreciated me by taking their time to vote for me and being recognized by other Africans, it's a wonderful experience. So I urge people to really just take a look at the website, if nothing else. Just read about it.
Yeah, exactly. AfricanAwards.org. Then after we do the voting on August 14, we hope people will come join us at the award ceremony the following month, September 20, in St. Paul. I just want to let everybody know. I know this question has come up. The award ceremony. We typically have a gala that we hold to honor all the recipients.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, as you know, I'm a very active person in Books for Africa, which is the largest ship of school textbooks into the continent of Africa. And it's celebrating its 25th anniversary this year, and I have the pleasure of co-chairing that planning effort, to celebrate that milestone. So, we thought it would be in honor of Books for Africa. We won't hold the awards gala because the Mshale team is really deep in helping organize that effort for Books for Africa.
Yes.
And also we'll tend to anyway compete for the same resources in terms of sponsorship and also just attention, because these are will be pretty much the two big events in town. If you remember the last time, we have 300 plus people at the African Awards Gala. So we really want the focus to be on Books for Africa during their celebration. We're still going to honor our recipients, the African Awards recipients, but it will be at the Books for Africa Awards Gala. We have carved out some time, and so you'll come. You'll have a double celebration, really.
A bigger stage.
So we will honor the African Awards recipients, and we'll also have a chance to celebrate Books for Africa, because they never really celebrate anything, but they do a lot of great work in our continent. But for tickets for those ones, which are also on sale, actually, you have to get those at booksforafrica.org, but you can connect from the African Awards
to their
.org website to the Books for Africa website. Yeah, I'll really encourage you to go ahead, because it's selling because the constituency is bigger for Books for Africa.
Yeah, it is.
So now you combine the Books for Africa and our African Awards, which are popular in their own right.
Yeah.
And we want anybody who wants to come to actually be able to get in, because we're selling tickets for the Books for Africa Awards Gala before we have even announced who the keynote speaker is. And I think once if you remember in the past ones, whenever you announce the keynote speaker, depending on who it is, tickets just tend to disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, just before you leave, you can just wrap up the dates and times for us, so we can make sure folks get to the website, put in their candidates, and also vote.
Yeah. So the nomination process actually is what kind of intimidates a lot of people, because you have to. I mean, everybody loves the celebration part. Come to the gala and all that, dress up nicely. But really, the nomination process is the most critical part for us, because that's where we need people to tell us, hey, so-and-so is deserving of an award, so we can highlight them.
So there's some writing involved. You just can't throw Charles Dennis out there.
You have to put in, tell us in about 250 words or less, why somebody is deserving of the particular award that you have nominated them for. So the awards are going on right now. African Awards, one word, AfricanAwards.org. And then you pick a category, read through all the descriptions, and the criteria are all listed, and then submit your name or company or organization, and then the main requirement I want to tell people, these people have to businesses, organizations have to be based in the United States, but all the criteria is listed in there. So do that by August 5th. Today is a weekend. It's probably a good time. You can do it today, tomorrow, before you go back on Monday to work, because after that, the next weekend will be the last weekend, and then we'll close nominations. Okay,
well, Tom, thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and we'd like to have you back again to talk a little bit more about the process, a certain point of it, and then also just before the gala ball, because as I said earlier, it's quite an experience, and I would love to really share that with others. So we appreciate you. And we hope you come back, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Giles, and happy birthday to Liberia.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
This is FM 89.9 KMOJ. We are the People's Station. Keep your dial set on FM 89.9. Shortly, we'll bring in Mr. Mongrue, where he'll give us a historical background of this wonderful country, Liberia, celebrating 166 years of independence. 166. Keep it dial set. FM 89.9 KMOJ. We are the People's Station. I regret to announce that the Finance Minister of Liberia has just informed me that, his team has just informed me that he will not be appearing on this program. However, I'm very disappointed and actually feel disrespected that at 15 minutes past the hour, I did get that call, and where my program is scheduled ahead in advance. And to have this happen, I think is a little bit disrespectful to me. However, this is FM 89.9 KMOJ. We are the People's Station, so we do serve the people. So we're happy to be here, and we're happy to continue programming on this program. The African Roots Connection will be every Saturday from 9 to 10. And for all those who are listening, who were very anxious to hear from their finance minister, I do apologize for that. However, like I said, the program will continue. We do have Mr. Mongrue here, and he will talk about the historical context of Liberia. We also have the head of the Organization of Liberians in Minnesota also to talk. And like I said again, it's the 166th anniversary, independent anniversary of Liberia. And to help us continue that celebration, we do have Mr. Wayne Doe. He's here with us. And Wayne would like to say good morning and welcome to the program. I know you barely had any sleep last night because of the celebration.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Charles, and I'm very glad to be here.
Okay, well, tell us what can we look forward to today?
Well, today, pretty much, we are more having some recreational activities. With a soccer tournament between the Liberian counties. It's going to be on this morning. And basically a day of family and gathering where people just interact with one another.
Mm-hmm. And so this is independence of our country, Liberia, and as you reflect back on not just what happened in Liberia, but just especially as it relates to the OLM, where are we heading right now, Wayne?
Well, it's good. It's a very good question. I think Liberians in general are very unique, and our community here reflects actually what is actually happening in Liberia. Yesterday's celebration was all about having Liberians come together as one people to celebrate a country, 166 year. But at the same time, all of the challenges that are going on in Liberia, there were those also who wanted to show that everything is not okay. But at the same time, it was necessary to reflect these things so that when we come together, we can not only discuss issues, but we can also discuss successes and accomplishments and achievements of the country.
Mm-hmm. Do we have elections coming up for OLM this year, next year, sometime around?
Elections, I believe, next year.
Next year?
Yeah.
Next year. Okay. But, people hear about Liberia, especially in the United States, and they sometimes ask, where is Liberia? How is Liberia founded? And we do have, my brother, Mr. Mongrue, who wrote a book. He would like to give us that connection, that historical background. When we talk about Liberia, especially as it relates to the United States, what are we talking about?
We're talking about, first of all, thank you for bringing me back again. A country that is somehow considered a stepchild. Of course, in my book, I describe it as a footprint, which is saying a country that was established with the help politically, financially, of course, and morally with the United States. So that's the connection which dated as far back as 1816, when the organization that we all know as the American Colonization Society launched a program that created a colony which turned into today Liberia. Your question about where is Liberia? Well, it's on the west coast of Africa. one of the oldest, matter of fact, the oldest independent republic on the continent, which has served as a beacon for the rest of the 58 countries of the entire continent of Africa. Look up to Liberia as that model for the struggle for freedom and liberation on the continent.
Now, so you talk about Liberia being a stepchild of America. How is that? How is that so?
She is a stepchild in a way, in a sense that besides the political, the cultural, and the social connections that the two countries share, the country was all first established with the involvement of leaders who became a major part of the U.S. government, who saw the need to send those African folks who at that time had actually no meaningful value in this country.
So you're talking about slaves?
Slaves now.
Okay.
So that's how she is a stepchild to the U.S. And since 1821, when the country was actually established as a nation, first as a colony, then a Commonwealth, and of course eventually the Republic of Liberia, dating in 1847, which is the independence of this little nation in West Africa. And there has been those connections, those political, social, economic, whatever way you want to call it, between the two nations.
And was it the first 7th or 9th president of Liberia was born actually in the U.S.?
The first 10 presidents. Yeah. It took 12 presidents. President C.D.B. King, Charles Dunbar King, came from Sierra Leone. President Barclay, also came from the Caribbean. So, and that's Arthur Barclay now, not Edwin. Edwin is the nephew. So if you add those two, that's total of 12. But the first original 10 Liberian presidents were born in the U.S. So that's also to add to the connection, the social and the cultural and the political connections.
So Wayne, currently, do you really see that connection as you interact with the city of Brooklyn Park in particular? Do you see that connection, that special connection that exists between the United States and Liberia?
I do. As a matter of fact, I do. And there are a lot of leaders that have recognized that connection and have really supported Liberia in many ways. The city of Brooklyn Park right now is a very strong partner of the Liberian community and Liberia as a whole. And I think that's because the initiatives that have been taken by the city in terms of the diversity, in terms of the history, has been very strong. And Liberians themselves have now stepped up to the game in terms of not just being observers, but also being participants and being very active in the engagement with the city to ensure that we are really contributing to the community.
And it seems like Mshale, this book you've written kind of captures that dynamic of this relationship, where historically there have been some sour times and there have been some good times. But where can one get a copy of that book?
Well, right now I think you can go directly through the publisher, which is www.iuniverse.com. You can get that, but you can also get it from any bookseller or book carrier, which will be Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or any book carrier in this country. E-book, Nuke, they're always available. So you can.
When you were writing this book, what was the most surprising historical fact that you discovered that you didn't know about?
What bothers me was a country that has such a rich historical connection. A good number of, for that matter, most of the Americans don't know. They don't know the connection. They didn't even know there was a connection. And the time as an educator, it surprised me that they don't know about it. And again, I can't blame whatever happened.
But do you think is that intentional, that the people here don't know much about Liberia as they should?
What America has this what I call this type of culture, which is all within this nation. So I wouldn't be that much surprised that they don't know about Liberia, just as they don't know about the rest of most parts of the world. So, but it was my duty. And to make sure that this overlooked country that is very significant in a lot of ways, from the Cold War to even beyond, and the present time, Liberia's role with respect to this country has been very significant. That I write a piece of document to inform or maybe preach the gospel and show to the folks how important this.
But as you talk about that significant role, let's recount some of the issues. You talk about the Cold War. How was Liberia a partner or significant to the U.S. during the Cold War?
Let's talk about 1945, or the period between 1935 and 1945 during the Cold War, when there was a war, of course, that actually raged in Europe. But I want to speak specifically on the North African region or corridor, where you have Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. and the U.S. had been involved in the war. But the problem was that because of the presence of Germans on North Atlantic Sea, so there cannot be a movement of ship and plane between North Africa and North America. So in other words, you cannot fly over the North Atlantic Sea. So there was where Liberia became very strategic, where they have to bypass that by going by way Miami to Natal, Brazil, then to Liberia, where U.S. Air Base was being put. And so from there, then of course the route then of course proceed on to North Africa. Now you can tell that was a bypassing which was very significant, that gave rise to the victory that U.S. had in North Africa. So that's one important area with respect to the Cold War. But what about Firestone, which at the time U.S. automobile industry was just emerging, and of course she needed that rubber also to advance her effort in the war effort. And so Liberia again became very important, because rubber at the time was not yet been synthetic rubber in particular has not been developed. Scientists were still working on synthetic rubber. So the natural rubber was very important. And the rest of the world was looking up to Malaysia and Singapore that was supplying the rest of the world with this natural rubber. But because of the war, so these two countries were caught up by Japan, because Japan had invaded this area. So they cannot get rubber from Asia. Secondly, the British had monopoly over the rubber. So again, Liberia became very important in 1926 when that plantation was established. So it brought that importance of Liberia's significance in our area of the connection. Then that's Cold War. And throughout the process, of course, between 1935 and towards the end, we supported the U.S. in a lot of different ways, serving as a conduit to prevent the expansion of Soviet presence on the continent as a whole. You're talking about VOA and all the other stuff.
So VOA, that's the Voice of America.
The Voice of America.
Okay.
So we can talk about how Liberia has become has been involved with U.S. foreign policy with respect to the continent and what was going on during that time period, even at this present moment.
Now, there's some talks out there that Liberia play a key role in not having a united continent, because the U.S. used their influence again with President Willard V.S. Tubman when he met with Houphouët Boigny, Touré, and Nkrumah. The goal was to create a united continent as it is in America today, but the rumors out there is that the United States went through President Tubman and said, no, instead of a united continent, let's have an organization that oversees the continent, and that most Africans feel that when our downfall started. That's
correct. When Nkrumah was making that connection, have the meeting in Casablanca with the kings and other leaders to have this USA of Africa, that's where I can, as a historian, I believe that was where the regret came from. Not just the U.S. The West did not really support the effort. Now in this current 21st century, that is a different case. But that's true. Yes, that was what happened, and I'm sure too. President Tubman did not want to be on his side after this whole deal was to be settled. He wouldn't have become the president, obviously, because he didn't have that. I don't think that enough education. So he was going to be maybe Kwame Nkrumah or Padre Lumumba of Congo, or maybe Sekou Touré, all of those. And I don't think the idea of having a continental organization was what Nkrumah was actually looking for. Right. He wanted to have an organization that would create one currency, one military, and one leader, maybe. That was not something that set well with Tubman. But that influence of not going along came from the West, not just the U.S., the West as a whole.
And then even looking back as far as independence, in your book you realize that Liberia was established for the return of free slaves to the continent, and America has some efforts in that establishment. And so if they went after that establishment and it became possible that these slaves could return to Africa and create an independent nation, why wasn't America the first to recognize Liberia's independence?
That's a very good question. You will recall that during that time period, there was indifference in terms of the two groups, meaning black and white in this country, especially certain slaveholders who were entrenched with the idea of slavery. Why it took 15 years before the recognition of Liberia's independence by the U.S., after Britain, France, and some of the European countries have already done that? Well, research shows that certain slaveholders were not in the position to work as any black ambassadors in Washington, D.C. That's something that they were not going to do, obviously. So there were other things happening. Also, the governors and the agents on the ground in Liberia, who were all mostly white Americans, initially did not believe that this little colony, which eventually became Liberia or country, they had the intellectual capability to govern themselves. It was very just too soon. It was, remember, 1821, 1847?
Yeah.
Well, that's 26 years.
Yeah.
That's not much of time for governing. Most of the folks who were leaving from here, African Americans who were not really trained enough to govern. And so there were a lot of concerns that created the delay for the U.S. to recognize Liberia's independence. Having said that, though, they were still a part of the process. For example, they created the avenue in the first place. Mm-hmm. I thought it could have been the fact that there may be a plan maybe to make Liberia one of the states in the U.S. Because if you look at all the investment that they put into place and the concern that they have to make sure this thing happen,
right?
It's possible that they had other intention. Had this decision had not been so hastily done, in my view.
Mm-hmm. Now, so when we look at that, and then we fast forward, Wayne, when we look at, just listen to what Obama is saying as far as race relations, every generation gets better. Could you say the same thing about the relationship between, Liberians here right now and just working with in the Brooklyn Park? Do you see that relationship improving over time, and do you have that positive outlook on the future trajectory of that relationship between Liberians and Brooklyn Park?
Right. For me, I'm very optimistic about the trend of the process in terms of the relationship. But still, there has been the challenge in terms of understanding that relationship. And I think we've seen that over the years. The relationship with Brooklyn Park has been such that we, as Africans in general, have to take some initiative in establishing or creating the avenue where people understand that relationship. So rather than being complacent about it, part of the struggle is that the city as a whole, just trying to reach out to the immigrant population of the Liberian community. That's one part of it. The other part of it is what are we doing to be able to insert ourselves into it? And over the years since I've been here, I've seen there have been a lot of progress around that. And it's all about education. It's all about getting to know one another. It's all about interacting. But it's all about also having that audacity from us to be able to insert ourselves and say, we are here. We're not going to go away anyway. So the best thing we can do is to work together. And the more we do that, and I think there's a positive forecast that we'll get better at it.
Again, we're talking with Wayne Doe. He's head of the OLM in Minnesota, and then Mr. Mongrue, who wrote a book on the history of Liberia as it relates to the United States. So we're seeing these historical developments with the United States and Liberia. You talk about how United States play a big role in developing, Liberia. Did we neglect to do anything during a historical period that would have changed the outcome of the relationship?
Well, in the American society, if you advance your own agenda or if you don't assert yourself, ain't nobody going to do it for you. That's what Mr. Doe was just alluding to. And so Liberia had the privilege or the opportunity to do more, to take advantage of the time, especially during the Cold War, when all of the investment were being put into Liberia, with all these different companies coming in. So, yes, we did overlook certain things. We also overlooked the importance of public policy formulation that could crystallize what America essentially was, So there's a lot of things that we could have done better and that we didn't do well, in my view.
But Wayne, how important it is, or how important is it for us as immigrants to take the first step in really inserting ourselves or being acculturated? The reason for my question is, in the 60s, if you talk to people who've been here since then, they are as open as can be, very tolerant, very understanding of other cultures. And I spoke to an older guy one time. He's from Ethiopia, and he said, when we first came, we didn't have our own grocery store, our own community. We were forced to assimilate and eat McDonald's with the guys on the college campuses, and we were forced to have a relationship with our black brothers. But now, people who come here, there's this Brooklyn Park. You have your grocery store. You have your cousins. You have your friends. You have your lovers. there is no need to mingle with anybody else. You have sufficient social, economic activity that's reminiscent of home, and you don't need to step out. So people are less open, less tolerant to other people. But we have to realize that we are coming to their country. And traditionally in our African culture, when I walk into your house, I say, good morning. And then you respond and say, hello and welcome. And I don't step into your house and fold my arms and say, are you going to say hello? So how important is it for us when we come here to be the ones to take the first step?
It's very, very, very important. And I think you made a very, very good point, because now that we are here, we are creating communities within the United States. And it's working to some extent, because those communities, we are expanding, we are getting involved in businesses and all of that. But yet it does not answer the question of the relationship, how we can move forward in the mainstream American society. So we have to take that step. Despite the challenges, I think if we don't, we will just be allowing ourselves to just remain that majority of that group that always just listen and just react to things rather than being very proactive. And I can see the changes going on, especially in Brooklyn Park, because they're where we have a strong sort of relationship, that we are taking those steps, and we need to do more of that. And by doing that, it means I give an example. Some months ago, there was this conversation on civic engagement, sponsored by the African Immigrant Services that we partner with as the Organization of Liberians in Minnesota. We're also partnering with Isaiah, another group that is, fighting for inclusion and addressing equity gap, all of that. Now, these are things that we have to be proactive in getting into. Otherwise, we will just be told all the time how to do it rather than being the ones to make those critical decisions. So I see that change going on in Brooklyn Park, and we have not reached to the point where we can say, yes, it's happening, but I think we're on the road to it. And the more we do that, the more we get not only Liberians, but other African immigrants, leaders to get involved into the process, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Mm-hmm. So again, I'm speaking with Mr. Wayne Doe. He is the head of OLM in Minnesota, which is the Organization of Liberians here in Minnesota. And we're talking about the 166 Independence Celebration of Liberia, which started last night. And he got very little sleep, I could tell. And it continues today. And it's just some faith-based celebration tomorrow.
Yes, that's the other part of the celebration. Always Liberians, and we are we like to thank God for where we've been. Again, there's a lot of challenges. 166 years, that's a long time as a country. What have we achieved, accomplished? There are things that we need to critically look at, and this gives us the opportunity to actually assess ourselves. Look at where we've been for all these years. Are there anything we can show for it as a country? The kind of relationship, the kind of fracture, as Liberia. We went through a period of protracted civil engagement that kind of fractured even more the relationship. And that has spurred a lot of issues and challenged our own development. But this weekend, this day, is an opportunity for us to come together. I was talking to someone, an American friend, and we talked about the July 26th. And the question I asked was, despite differences when it comes to July 4th, would you stop your children from going to a celebration or so? And she said, no. I don't think about it, because during that time, whether you're Republicans or you're Independent or you're Democrat, it's not about you anymore. It's about looking at your country and looking at where you've been and what are the challenges and how you can kind of critically think how to move forward. And I think this gives us the opportunity. Now, tomorrow, we're going to have a huge service, a community Thanksgiving service. It's going to include a lot of music performances. A lot of the churches, the Liberian Ministers Association is playing a major role to get that together. And I want to invite all of you to come out there. It's going to be at the Park Center auditorium, high school auditorium at 4:30. Come out and let's give thanks for where we've been and how long we've come to this point in time.
We're talking faith, Mongrue. Let's look at history and faith. When this whole, Liberia, American colonization society was moving back and forth and trying to establish this land in Africa, my assumption is that Christianity was brought there with these free slaves. we find ourselves right now in Liberia as majority Christian. Okay. Was that Christianity imposed upon us, or was that something that we embraced? Is there any historical facts that speaks to that? I'm not sure if that's even part of your book, but I just wondering, as you know, usually people move around and move with their religion.
Well, Christianity was not really imposed, but of course it was a strategic move from a historical context to what they call Christianized or civilized the hidden society or population.
Explain that.
It's a book written by a Liberian, Dr. Yassir, who wrote up the entire historical context with respect to the Episcopal Church. So no, it was not really imposed, but of course the intention was to civilize.
So Christianity was synonymous with civilization, with being civilized.
That's the idea. Even in the midst of that, there was still division between the African Americans who had gone to Africa,
going back to Africa
right. With this idea. The whites who were also part of that the process, and the indigenous who were in the organization who were also Christians. So it was all intended to change people that they think didn't have enough civilized, attribute, if you will. So in a way, you can say it was imposed, but not, drastically something that you could point to. But that's what they were tending to do, to change a group of people that they believed were not much civilized enough.
So then I'm assuming there was some kind of sectionalism. If you were Christian, you were treated a certain way. If you're not Christian, you were a little bit lower.
There was stratification, if you will,
right?
And that this whole faith-based thing created on the continent, not just Liberia. I mean, everywhere you go in Africa, you notice that people who are Christian are considered that class, because it came with other things, school, how you. Marital situation, Africans believe in polygamy. Okay, but if you're a Christian, you're supposed to have a woman, just a wife. So all of these ideas were something that did not really go in line with African culture, if you will. It's all intended to change a group of people that they feel did not have what.
Right. So how about music? Was music play that same role where they brought their music, and if their music was
music, especially with respect to Liberia. Is a very high appreciation for Western music. Matter of fact, when there's a new release in the U.S. today, the next following month you will see that in Liberia. Yeah. Most Liberian functions, from what we know from historical context, has a much higher appreciation for Western music. Having said that, over the last decade or so, there has been some what I call patriotism in terms of the involvement of the encouragement that has come in the Liberian society where native or traditional music by different ethnic groups, we see that now in most functions. But there's still a high rate of Western music in the Liberian society. Even the radio station will tell you there were times where majority of the time you will hear Western music, and maybe they will have 30 minutes of African music. And so that, of course, concerns me as a historian, that on the continent of Africa, when countries like Nigeria and others are playing African music, we are just over here playing some so it is not something that it is happening today, and it still goes on today.
But can you say the same thing you're saying about religion and music? Can you say the same thing about attire? Because I think I see people are more adaptive to the attire. I don't want to say African attire, but the non-Western attire. People like Talbot, with this kind of suit he wore versus a regular suit and tie.
The nation as a whole has been going through what I call metamorphosis in terms of changes have been evolving. But yes, attire, not until the late 1970s when President Talbot, and of course as it goes on, the preceding leadership has shown some pride for using African attire. But there has never been, I'm told, in fact, there were times at the University of Liberia, you cannot, when you wear African attire, it was something like a shameful situation. Not anymore. Nowadays, things are changing. But there's still that cultural connection of our attachment to Western style of dressing.
Interesting. So as we look at the dynamics of this country on the continent, how unique its metamorphosis was, do you think that it was a disadvantage to us or an advantage? And disadvantage in the point that because we're more adaptive to Western style and Western culture, we did not spend time embracing our own, therefore our original culture was not developed. a la music, where Nigerians were playing their Nigerian music, so
Exactly.
they had a chance to advance their music, where we were more Western music, so we never really paid attention to our music. Now we're trying to pick it up a little bit. That's one. But did it also play an advantage where we had U.S. currency? So if you look at it historically, was it a curse or a blessing to be this stepchild of America?
It was both. It was both in my view, from what I have studied and researched. But again, we didn't take advantage of the positive piece that could have been taken out of the American experience, in my view. I mean, for example, implementation of public policy, governance, and stuff that we could have applied as a beacon for the rest of the continent. Although there were times, we were looked up to when it comes to liberation movement, things like that. But we didn't really, in my view, take much advantage of the good that America has, that this group that went to Africa, actually took along with it. But that's the disadvantage. The advantage is now we're trying to realize all of that. The folks that went to Africa, of course, did not have any interest in knowing enough about Africa. That's why in the Liberians' history, from what I even mentioned, there was something called the 40-mile radius. So it was the Monrovia settlement and the little areas in the coastal area. After you leave that area, when you go into the interior or the hinterland, that was not Liberia. That was not part of it. So they didn't have any interest to even want to do what I call drastic assimilation process, So that was the disadvantage. They didn't, because of language, of course, language and culture are inextricably bound. You can't separate them. And so if the people didn't understand the language, they didn't want to have anything much to do with that. Of course, over the time, that became a change over time, especially during the administration of President William V.S. Tubman, when he brought about unification, integration, trying to include the native chiefs and folks. So that actually helped a little bit. But even with that, there's still more work to be done to include more of African culture and way of life.
Now, so when you talk about the disadvantages and how we didn't take advantage of better public policy, so could that have been what the U.S. saw initially and said that we were a little bit too premature to become an independent nation? Were they looking at those things that we did, like public policy, and taking advantage of those, good initiatives that could have put us in a better position today?
Well, first of all, the condition of black folks in this country at that time, it was very obvious. They didn't have enough education. In fact, there was not much opportunity for that to happen for black folks. So yes, the U.S. may have seen that this group of people need a lot more training, much more than what they had to be able to govern themselves. There were very few places where black folks could go to school in this country during that time period. So what would you expect them to have to govern? So I can say yes, they knew that. They knew that they were not quite prepared for governance, and that impact still even true today in our public policy arena. How we go about conducting governments and affairs of government. You see there's an endemic corruption process which is still being talked about, because that much training, and we should be the one to have even shown to the rest of the continent how to go about doing things when it comes to public policy by Western standard. Okay,
so we fast forward again, Wayne, and we talk about how Liberians, we are in Brooklyn Park, we're welcome, we have a good relationship with the city, and we talk about assimilating, we talk about saying, hey, we're here, we're not going anywhere, let's work together to make this place better. Right. In doing that, now I've seen Liberians step forward to be elected for public position, and we as Liberians cannot even come together to support that person. So my question is, how serious are we as Liberians about this whole assimilation and making Brooklyn Park our home, and working with those who we met there to make it that balance or reflective of the dynamics of the society,
right,
or the demographics?
Great. I think, first of all, it's a process. It's a process that we need to understand, that it does not happen, I guess, just immediately. It's a process that we need to understand, because, again, if you cannot fix the problems in your home, how will you be able to fix the problem outside most of the time? So for us as a community, I think it was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, in terms of a Liberian or any other person, for that matter, African immigrant, trying to get to a position that will help our community. It was a missed opportunity. As you remember, we all recall a Liberian immigrant, Mr. Russell, who tried to become mayor and city councilman, and the struggle we went through, we didn't support one another. But I think that's the process that we need to think about, that in order to do that, we must be able to build a strong community. And to build a strong community, we must be able to work together. So we as Liberians need to find those things that would bring us together rather than divide us, because we are, in general, not together. Now, from the historical context that Mr. Mongrue is referring to, definitely, it didn't begin from here. Right. It began from the continent and it spilled over here. So we have to be able to find those ways. Now, if we don't do that, it would be very hard. I mean, if we look at the other immigrant community, like the Somalis, for instance, they have excelled in that area, because one Somali told me is that, regardless of what, when it comes to public office or something like that, it doesn't really matter. We will pull together to make it happen. Yeah. But we Liberians, we have not, I think, reached the point where we think that way. So now is a responsibility that we have. And I think having that civic engagement and just our own community very much fractured in terms of understanding how to formulate that strategy to work together. As leaders, I think it's a responsibility that we have, that our children that are coming after us need to see that we have that ability to pull together and work together for it. We have our differences. We'll always have that. But it should not affect our ability as a community to move to the next level. I think it's upon us to do that, and we have the opportunity now. We have to do it.
As we talk about the future of OLM, what would be the one or two things that you would tell whoever will succeed you? If you were to give them advice, whoever the election brings forth tomorrow to head the OLM, what would be some pieces of advice that you have for that individual?
That structurally we are still far away in terms of creating a system that will work for us. I think we all know individually in different areas that we need to do this to work together, but we have not really created that system that makes sense. For instance, we are really politically charged as a community, and the organization itself was based on some sort of political structure that had played a major role in terms of moving forward. And in the past few years, we changed that dynamics to be able to work as a social service organization. Now, I can see today we still have not reached that point. So I would very much want to be able to bring leaders together to look at how can we divide the two. Either we form another organization, for instance, to attack certain problem or issues when it comes to that, and then focus on social services on it. I think it's a struggle. So that would be one of the things I would say that to the next person coming on that we need to focus on. The other thing is that I think we need to be more engaged with our community. We need to be more engaged in terms of services. We need to highlight those things that we are doing that are positive, because most of the time the negatives always overshadow the positive things that we are doing.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Mongrue, let's talk about your wrap things up on your book here. Where can one get a copy of the book?
The book publisher is in Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, and it's called iUniverse. So you can Google www.iUniverse, universe.com. You can also find the book in any bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, ebook, Nuke. So it's available. And what you have to do is just give the name or my name. The title of the book, of course, is Liberia, America's Footprint in Africa. That alone will take you to the book. Or you can just see Jesse Mongrue, JESSEMONGRUE. Either way, you can get to the book. I just want to say very quickly, Charles, that this book, I think, is also, in fairness, a part of the African-American history that needs to be told.
Is that why you wrote this book?
That's part of it, because it covers essentially a good portion of their history. The folks that went to Liberia were not they were African-Americans. So it connects a lot, more so than, in my view, than what they need to. People need to read this book, because Liberia the Liberians are one of the largest population here in the Twin Cities. If you get to know about Liberia, you'll be knowing about a lot more than just a small group of people, 35 plus, maybe 35,000 plus, if I'm not, getting
I think way more than that.
Yeah, probably a little more than that. So you want to know about this population that is doing a lot more in the healthcare service and just contributing towards the economy. So you want to know about a group that has played a significant role. So by buying the book, it will expose you to a much better understanding of the social dynamic of this population that is very much important to the Twin Cities. and Minnesota in general.
And Wayne, as head of all of them, I mean, I'd like to give you the finest few minutes to just maybe make a short speech to your people on this 166th Independence celebration.
Great. I just want to say all Liberians are connected to Liberia, friends of Liberia immigrants, that we have to take this opportunity and just reach out to one another to say that 166 years of existence as a country, as a nation, is an opportunity for us to come together, look at not only our strengths but our weaknesses, our differences, and let's talk about it to be able to move forward. I think we cannot allow anything else to stop that, because as it is, we as a people, we have an obligation to be able to work together and work so that the future of our country, that it rests in the hands of the young people, that they can understand as leaders that we are able to transcend our differences and be able to do it in a way that is important for us to, just move forward. The celebration is going on again. Tomorrow, Sunday, we have a concert, a service, Thanksgiving service headed by the Liberian Ministers Association. We want all of you to come out, because it's about time also that we come together and just be thankful. Despite things that we think that can hold us back, we have to move forward, and we should not allow that to happen. So again, come out Sunday, Park Center High School auditorium at 4:30. There will be a service, and we want all of you to be part of it.
All right, Mr. Mongrue, thanks for coming back on the program.
Thank you so much for bringing me back.
We appreciate it, and we will keep your number. We'll refer to you if we need some historical context of Liberia. And Wayne, thanks for stopping by. Regrettably, the finance minister could not make it. We'd love to have him here to just have a friendly discussion about the future of Liberia. But I'm very, very honored to have you here to talk about the Organization of Liberians in Minnesota and what we're doing and how we're celebrating our 166th birthday. So to all Liberians out there, I'd like to say happy belated Independence Day. It was yesterday, July 26th, but this weekend is a weekend of celebration. And I hope you will not only celebrate but reflect on where we've come from, what brought us here. And we fought 16 years of civil war. Enough is enough. So let's start to look at each Liberian as brothers and not look at your last name and what vernacular language you speak. Let's try to just support. If anyone have Liberia connected to them, let's look at them as someone who's our own blood. I mean, let's learn from our other African brothers who've assimilated here and how they support one another. It's okay to have differences. We celebrate our differences, but we also stand on them and we move forward as one group. So let's join forces, Liberians. Let's come together. Let's embrace one another. Let's appreciate one another. And that's like Wayne said, let's highlight our good, not only the bad someone's done. And I don't want to talk to someone tomorrow and they tell me when Wayne was head of OLM, this is what he didn't do. But let's talk about what he did, and what he didn't do. Let's pick it up from there and then finish what some of the things he started, and let's not dwell on what he didn't do. So let's this is not just just a talk, but I mean from my heart to your heart, let's just think about it seriously. Let's look at how many Liberians died during the Civil War. Why are we alive today is for a purpose. Maybe our purpose for which we did not die during the Civil War is to really help bring that country together. And I think each one of us can make that difference, no matter how little it is. Like I say, every drop in the bucket counts. So if you're a Liberian, you're listening, please start to think about how we can appreciate one another, how we can come together, even in worship, cultural, whatever it is. But let's come together in every aspect of our life, and that will help us. So from me to you, I'd like to say happy Independence Day, and thank you so much for listening to the African Roots Connection. Well, now I'd like to make way for Raz Bungo Jerry, who we'll be here shortly with the program Tropical Vibrations, Cool Runnings. And this is FM 89.9 KMOJ. We are the people. Stay.